Mic up right now and call tonight's meeting to order. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors to order for tonight's joint public hearing, along with the Planning Commission. At this point, I'm going to digress to Mr. Perry so he can call his Planning Commission to order.
We're going to call the Planning Commission to order, and let us pray. Father God in heaven, once again, Lord, we come in the name of Jesus. God, we come this evening giving your name all praise. We thank you, God, for touching us early this morning and starting us out on another day's journey. God, we ask a special blessing on our Board of Supervisors and other county leaders, God. Asking a special blessing on Mr. Bourne, our new county administrator. Pray, God, that you would guide him and keep him in your keeping care. Bless each and every one that have come out this evening. God, we ask a special blessing on our men and women that's fighting in an unknown war and over in a country, Lord, that's not the United States. Pray, God, that you would bring them safely back home to their families. For us, in the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
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 Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chairman Perry, just as a point of order, I am going to digress, so there's not two chairmen running this meeting tonight. I'm going to digress to you, sir, and as I understand it, the intent is to hold the public discussions tonight to 3 minutes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the board stands by that decision. I digress at this time.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon, and please keep in mind that this is a public hearing, not a public debate. And anything that you have to say it to the commission and not to the people in the audience. So let's try to keep this meeting orderly and a gentle fashion, like it should be. And as you heard Mr. Bourne just said that we're going to limit 3 minutes to everyone that wants to speak this afternoon. So first on the agenda is Mr. Bourne, Mr. Zodi. Could you give us the motion to approve or approve with amendments?
Yes, that's before you all, I believe. What I wanted to do is just give a presentation.
Yes. I'll move to approve the agenda with the amendments.
And that's for the Board of Supervisors. I need a second from a board member.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Board of Supervisors has approved the agenda and digresses to you, Mr. Perry, for the commission.
Okay. You got one. Mr. Zodi?
1 second, please.
Approve the agenda too, for the planning commission.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Kirby.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, second.
Second.
Been moved and probably second that the agenda for the planning commission be accepted. All in favor, let's raise our right hand, commission. Opposed? Okay. Good presentation, Mr. Zodi?
Yes, I wanted to keep, sorry for anybody short. I want to keep this brief because I know we have a lot of speakers, and I just want to present to you all the purpose and intent of this draft ordinance. That this is entitled Section 4-19-1, Solar and Battery Storage Facilities, Purpose and Intent. The purpose of this article is to provide for and regulate the siting, development, construction, installation, operation, and decommissioning of solar energy and battery storage facilities in the county in a manner that promotes economic development and the safe, effective, and efficient use of such facilities while protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the community and avoiding adverse impacts on county resources. The intent of this article is to encourage solar energy and battery storage facilities in a manner that promotes the development of renewable energy sources while preserving Nottoway County's rural character and fostering context sensitivity with regards to undesirable impacts on adjacent land uses. As such, Nottoway County is limiting the aggregate total energy generated by all medium-scale solar energy facilities to the total energy consumed by the unincorporated areas of the county as well as the energy consumed by the towns of Blackstone, Burkeville, and Crew, as well as Fort Pickett and Fort Barfoot. Lastly, the county seeks to minimize solar energy facilities' impacts on natural resources, including pollinator and wildlife habitats and existing agricultural, forestal, residential, commercial, industrial, historical, cultural, and recreational use of property or the future development of such uses of property in the county. This article is not intended to abridge safety, health, environmental, or land use requirements contained in other applicable laws, codes, regulations, standards, or ordinances. So this article does not supersede or nullify any provision of local, state, or federal law that applies to solar energy facilities. With that, Chair, I'd like to turn over back to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Zodi. Any planning commissioners, any questions, corrections, answers?
Is there any questions that any of the Board of Supervisors members have at this point? If not, I digress again to Chairman Perry.
Okay, we're going to open the public hearing. And the first speaker, would you come and state your name, come up to the podium and state your name?
Mr. Perry, if I could first, board members, I need a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? I digress.
Okay. All right, planning commission, we need a motion to open the public hearing.
I motion to open the public hearing.
It's been probably moved and second that the planning commission will open this public hearing. All in favor, let's raise our right hand. Opposed? Okay. First speaker, will you come to the podium and state your name?
Is there a time allowance?
Pages up there.
Mr. Perry, is there a time allowance?
Okay, I'm sorry.
3 minutes, Bo.
Yes, 3 minutes. I see Ms. Beverly Amps.
I'm Beverly Ames. I live at 109 West 4th Street in Blackstone, and I am pro-solar. One of the things I want to look at is increasing our taxes. Solar farms will allow the taxes from the solar farms to help augment some of the things that we've got going on, such as the new 911 system that they're looking at. That's $11 million. This would help cover some of those expenses. Use the money from the solar farms, tax things to help make us a better county. Let's improve the county infrastructure, the school system, medical care, other needs, the water. We also need to look at industrial growth for this county. I've been here 16 years. Mr. Work and I have had this before. Where is our industrial growth? This is an opportunity for the county to make money without having to go after the citizens who, after 3 years of COVID, are just recovering financially. If we're going to look at the dangers that I keep hearing, the panels are now lasting up to 30-plus years, and the recycling is now an option in the U.S. Panels are now being made in the U.S. If we want to do a comparison, let's look at the electric car situation and the batteries there. Are they recyclable? No. Are they extremely expensive to replace? Yes. But we're going to be required to have an electric car in the near future. What is it, 2035? We're not being given a choice on that. We look at the cost effectiveness of the smaller solar company or the smaller solar farms. Solar companies, it may not be cost effective for them to do a 40-acre farm. Extending it and having less may give us a better option as far as tax returns. Let's look at the educational opportunities for the local people in the surrounding counties as well as in Nottoway. Educational programs have been set in place at SVCC for the building and maintenance of solar farms in the region. Once you've completed the program and you've worked for the company for a few years, you come out with the experience to have a journeyman or apprenticeship level in HVAC, electric, or plumbing. That means you can start your salary between $60,000 and $80,000. in our economy, that is a big boon to the demographics here. And finally, let's look at constitutional infringement rights. Since when in the Constitution does it say a county or group of people can say what a landowner can or cannot produce on their farm unless it's totally illegal? But still, this is not an illegal substance that we're growing or we're producing. I will close with that, but please look at the whole picture. We have small farmers where smaller solar farms can be beneficial to them, allowing the money made from the leases of the smaller farms to support the existing farms and the family homes that have existed for centuries.
Thank you, Ms. Amp.
Thank you.
Mr. Dave Hamilton.
Hi there. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my dad. I don't know if, do I need some sort of approval? Do you all need to take,
Yes, sir.
we're all good on that? My name's Dave Hamilton. I'm here on behalf of Alexander Hamilton, who had knee surgery yesterday. He regrets not being able to be the presenter. These are his words, including what I just said. I commend the Nottoway Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission for your diligent work on your proposed zoning ordinance to allow solar industrial sites in areas where county landowners desire this project. My understanding of your proposal is 40 acres with buffers of 800 to 1,000 feet. This proposal will preserve the character of Nottoway County. This proposal will also, 1, protect the viability of agriculture and forestry. 2, protect private property rights of landowners. 3, allow Nottoway County to provide enough electricity to meet the needs of citizens and businesses in the county. Nottoway County does not have any obligation to provide electricity to large metro areas. I believe you should be very careful about taking large acreages of land out of agriculture and forestry, our food chain and forestry needs. The world population is increasing rapidly worldwide. You can't eat or produce forestry products from a solar panel. I am perplexed and confused, as it is my understanding that trees take in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen to the environment, which in turn combats global warming. In the proposed Dickerson Creek project that surrounds over 2/3 of my property, over 2,380 acres of trees will be cut down. A conservative estimate of 300 trees per acre would equate to 771,000 trees being cut down. That's 750,000 trees lost, causing damage to the environment and increasing global warming. If you research the word climate, 8 to 12 factors can cause climate change. The United States in the last 20 years has reduced harmful emissions into the atmosphere more than any other country in the world. China, Russia, India, the Middle East, Africa, and South America have done very little or nothing to reduce harmful emissions. Are our efforts all for naught? In conclusion, if you decide to have solar sites, I believe you should limit solar industrial sites to small acreage that will not impact the viability of agriculture and forestry or invade the personal property rights of landowners. And I hope I did my dad justice here. And I should have said, I live in Richmond, Virginia, but I do have property on Old Schoolhouse Road. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amp. Okay, Mr. Greg Wolven, W-L-B-E-N.
Thank you. My name is Greg Wolven. I live at 307 Oak Street, Burkeville. I'm a 1981 graduate of Virginia Military Institute with an electrical engineering degree. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the states of Virginia and Indiana. Since I graduated from VMI, I've worked at electric co-ops as well as other utilities on power generation, transmission, distribution issues. I was on the National Electric Safety Code, which writes the laws on what you're talking about today. for both the 2017 edition as a member and the 2023 edition as a secretary of the committee that wrote those laws. Since this is just on solar, I'll make this quick. Solar panels get destroyed by hail, accidents, storms. Some of the panels are hazardous waste and must be disposed of as such and have been designated as the EPA as hazardous waste. I want you to think about on these rules, I did not hear when the regulation or the ordinance was read, whether or not this took care of that, if this addressed those issues. These must be disposed of hazardous waste. Are the proposed regulations, ordinances taking this into consideration? Drainage. Even medium solar fields may have erosion and runoff issues. East Texas recently, this year, well, last 12 months, has had significant issues with their neighbors adjoining these sites, with the runoff because of the clearing of the land, noise on the construction is just one easily obtainable, go to YouTube and look at it. Are the proposed regulations addressing these issues? I'm not against solar, I'm not for solar. I live in Nottoway. I want to make sure that what we do is the right thing. Returning the land back to its original use may be in the wording of the ordinance or on the plats. I've had personal experience with wires that are buried, concrete and steel footers for the support of the solar panels and the infrastructure to support the electric utility, and they are not easily gotten rid of. This is not an easy thing to do. Sounds good, sounds easy, like restore it, not as easy as people make it out to be. Can we take care of that in the ordinance? Is that looked at? When you say restoring it back to prime, what does that mean? Remember, the original contract may be with one company, but typically they sell that within 6 months or 12 months to somebody else. Okay? Does that track with them? I'm not a lawyer. I'm an engineer, okay? It's tough enough being an engineer, let alone a lawyer. Are the proposed regulations and ordinance going to take care of that? Solar is not a 24/7 source of power. Anybody that says that does not understand it. Solar components have to be mined. It's not sand that makes it glass. It's quartz. I'm not either for or against solar. However, I'm against the not understanding of the potential issues that this could create and what it brings to the table. The U.S. has one of the highest electric reliabilities in the world, yet we're closing generation sites at an alarming rate.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Am
you,
I up for
Mike.
3? Thank you very much, sir. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mike Mason?
Thank you, everyone. As most of you know by now, I'm completely opposed to large-scale industrial solar, and for that matter, just about any solar project other than rooftop panels and brownfield usage. Nevertheless, given that there is so much pressure being leveled against us from the state and the federal government, I understand and realize that we need to at least allow for something between no solar at all and large-scale industrial solar facilities. This ordinance does just that. It's a good compromise that even I can live with, provided that the Planning Commission can agree to remove the second sentence of Section 4-19-7, number 4, regarding the exceptions to setbacks before they pass this ordinance on to the board for approval. It reads, exceptions may be made for adjoining parcels that are owned or controlled by the applicant and are included in the site. So this conceivably allows the likes of Solanesco to concentrically fan out from a 40-acre site until they have the full Nottoway County acreage allotment with no buffers between each of those individual 40-acre sites. If Solanesco were to do this, no one else in the county would be allowed to participate in a solar lease, and I don't think that was the intent of this ordinance. I've got 3 follow-up subjects to briefly comment on, however. Number 1, Senate Bill 697. I think that Nottoway has an argument against solar development to the extent that the bill calls for. Between 12 and 14% of Nottoway's land mass is already undevelopable and untaxable secondary to Fort Barfoot, Piedmont Geriatric Hospital, Nottoway Correctional Center, and the Virginia Center for Behavioral Rehabilitation. That combined with this ordinance's proposal to supply power via solar equal to the county's total power consumption should be enough to satisfy the state. I think that Nottoway County should be a special exception to Senate Bill 697 as well as Senate Bill 567 and House Bill 636 next year, simply due to the large footprint that the government already occupies in this county. Number two, I remind everyone that the Cherry Tree Timber Site, or what Solonesco calls Dickerson Creek, and sometimes Victoria Martin, should absolutely never be allowed as a solar site. There are too many reasons to get into again, particularly in the time allotted here, but two that stand out are, one, the erosion potential or K factor of the soil on that property. You will have another grasshopper or bluestone siltage situation on your hands, since Dickerson Creek has the same soil makeup as those facilities in Mecklenburg. Secondly, not one citizen in this county will be compensated for the use of Dickerson Creek land for a solar project, since the entire 2,300-acre tract is owned by the Church of England.
Ms. Mason, your time is up. Thank you.
That's a good spot for me to stop.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Rose Wooten.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Rose Wooten. I live on 6137 Lewis and Plank Road in Burkeville, Virginia. Plan Commission, Board of Supervisor, and County Administrator, Mr. Bowen. I want to thank the Zoning Committee for the hard work and cooperation and the tremendous amount of time it took you to make up and develop the proposed solar ordinance. I'd also like to thank the Planning Commissions and the Board of Supervisors for their commitment to Nottoway County. Nottoway County needs a solar ordinance that provides a set guidelines for solar companies to follow if they are interested in developing facilities in our county. The ordinance would prevent randomly selecting a set of rules for each individual applicant. All applicants would have to follow the same set of guidelines. In my opinion, there are a few guidelines that I feel need to be addressed in the ordinance. I hope that in the future that these concerns can be reviewed, one of which is the setbacks on page 10, 4-19-7, number 4, second sentence. Exceptions. Exceptions may be made for adjoining parcels that are owned or controlled by the applicant and are included in the site. And also, I have concerns about the amount of exceptions, exemptions, and waivers that are used after stated guidelines. That may be something that's legally done, I don't know, but I don't understand that. I am here tonight to ask the Planning Commission that if you so do want to present this to the board, then please take into consideration of removing that statement about exemptions from being made for adjoining parcels on page 10, 4-19-7, number 4, second sentence. Thank you for preserving the rural character of the county, preserving our farmlands, our forests, our water, and the wildlife that we have in this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wooten. Mr. Jerry Spence.
Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm Jerry Spence. I actually am a resident of St. Mary's County, Maryland, and own property off of Route 49. So I just wanted to bring up a couple brief points. We've heard quite a bit that the proposed ordinance is too restrictive, and I spent some time looking at some neighboring counties, and I'm not sure it's restrictive enough. And I'll give you some examples. So if you read the Amelia County ordinance, it's arguably more restrictive than the proposed Nottoway County ordinance. And Appomattox County, they allow no solar in agriculturally zoned land, none. So that's roughly 92% of Appomattox County where solar is not permitted. They do have one site that was put in earlier, but they've since closed the agricultural zoning areas down for solar use. My understanding is Fluvanna County, it's a little bit further away, recently has adopted the same ordinance, essentially, with no solar on agriculturally zoned land. So it's something to consider. I'm also kind of curious, and maybe some speakers later, I haven't had a chance to check this yet and run the GIS on it, but heard a lot about essentially the ordinance that's proposed might be viewed as a prohibition on solar because it's so restrictive. I think before that statement's made, I think some GIS work needs to be done to see how much the county is actually, open for solar. One more point. So it's interesting because this ordinance that's now before the board, the one that's created, this ordinance was drafted by Nottoway County citizens, and the same voices that helped draft the comprehensive plan, and it was done for the benefit of Nottoway citizens. So the first ordinance that was proposed a couple years ago, it was drafted with the help of outside consultants. It was first reviewed by outside solar companies because the first public hearing I attended, there was responses from Solonesco and Dominion about the proposed ordinance. And that ordinance was, in my opinion, written to benefit outside solar companies, not the citizens of Nottoway County. So my recommendation is start small and look out for your citizens first. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spence. Okay, Joanne Webb.
Thank you. My name is Joanne Scott Webb. I live at 13225 Cheston Landing Drive, Chesterfield, Virginia. Scott Timberland and our other family businesses own and manage timberland in several counties, including Nottoway. I expect that every person here tonight values and cherishes their private property rights. They're valuable to you. John Adams, our second president and principal author of our Constitution, wrote, "Private property rights must be secured or liberty does not exist." Our ancestors took extreme risks to cross that ocean to come to America. And they sought the right to own their own land and feed their family, something they did not have in their homeland. So where the rights of one person or one group have the ability to nullify the rights and opportunity of another group or person. Maybe there are farmers here tonight who want to keep their land in the family but need additional income. Maybe they're tired and worn out. Maybe they need to move to a retirement home. Maybe they need more services. Maybe they could lease part of their land for renewable energy. The income from solar can keep your family and forest in the family for 40 to 45 years with huge benefits for you, your children, your community. Maybe income for retirement, college educations for your children and grandchildren. Solar energy done right can be a blessing for all Nottoway citizens and our children. Imagine improved schools, safer schools, better roads, infrastructure, county services, health services. The income streams of the county could be used for many needed benefits and improvements. In America, we need every type of energy, more drilling, fracking, coal, nuclear, and renewable. Energy independence equals national security and fiscal security. If we're not secure without significant energy resources. I worked on solar since 2015. I have researched, learned, and worked on projects as a landowner. It's the only tool in my toolbox to keep our timberland together for the next generation. Maybe what your family also needs and our county needs too, maybe. The Clean Air Act for 2020 set goals for renewable energy. Right now, we've only met a fraction over 10% of that. There have been several articles in the newspaper about this recently. The bill 636, I believe, was defeated in the House. I would hope that we would consider postponing or discussing this current ordinance at a later date. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Webb.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Andy Brownstein.
Good evening. My name's Andy Brownstein. I'm a partner in the law firm of Green Herlocker in Richmond, Virginia. And we are the Virginia Policy Advisor to the Center for Infrastructure and Economic Development, which supports local communities through the development of responsible renewable energy policies that provide financial and quality of life improvements for local governments and its citizens. And the center operates in approximately 6 states in the United States right now doing the same work. The center believes that case-by-case project review is the right approach to solar development in Virginia. However, the County Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors are already well-equipped with general zoning authority to ensure any particular project is a good fit and will provide ample benefits to the community. Virginia state law provides many levers that you can pull to exercise these zoning powers, including a 2232 comprehensive plan review, the special use permit process, and numerous economic incentives which are already available to you as a mechanism for managing and controlling solar or renewable energy development in your county. The concept in your current ordinance of using hard caps of parcel acreage size and energy production size to the energy used by your current citizenry are essentially taking those powers out of your own hands. And by putting those kinds of caps in place, you're limiting your own powers that both planning commissions and board of supervisors should be exercising in a discretionary manner. In particular, there are reasons why hard caps such as acreage limits and energy production limits may in fact also be legally suspect in the state of Virginia. Unlike other certain mechanisms to regulate solar development such as buffers or other mechanisms of a similar nature, hard caps may in fact already conflict with Section 2232 of the Code and the Dillon Rule. It's also possible that you will be looked at as treating different property owners in disparate manners. For instance, someone who owns a 50-acre parcel can't do a project with 40 acres of a larger parcel perhaps would be a better example, 100 acres, compared to a parcel owner who only owns 10 or 15 acres who would like to do a renewable energy development. They would be treated disparately under this statute or under this ordinance. And that may not be legally permissible in the state of Virginia. In addition, you already have, as I said before, a 2232 analysis that allows you to use your comprehensive plan as a measure for determining where the board or the planning commission, in the case of 2232, can allow solar development to occur. We would encourage you to consider more substantive uses of your ordinance to allow the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors to exercise the powers which they already have. And we would encourage you very strongly to reconsider some of the hard caps and hard restrictions that you put in place via this ordinance. For example, in the context of agricultural usage of land, we don't have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Mr. Richard Hawkins.
Hello, I'm Richard Hawkins. Board members, Planning Commission members, we have a law on the books in the state of Virginia here which is crazy. And I'll back up and let's say put crazy in bold capital letters with quotation marks. And the first speaker alluded to that. That is this law that's going to outlaw the purchase of a new motor vehicle in the state of Virginia with a gasoline engine come 2035. You won't be able to purchase a new motor vehicle with a gasoline engine come 2035. Now, I dare say that there's not too many people in this room here that are in favor of that, but that is an example of what can happen when an out-of-control, radical legislature, which is only concerned about their agenda and not you, decides they want to move forward with something and ram it down your throat. Now, with that being said, I'd like to commend this board and the Planning Commission for taking the opposite approach, for taking a go slow approach. Let's check things out. Let's make sure that we're doing everything right on that. So I commend you for that, and I encourage you to continue to take a go slow approach. You can start small, increase as you move along. It's much easier to do that than overbuild something and then try to downsize it. We look forward to you folks continuing to look out after our interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Robert Hawthorne.
Good evening. I'm just going to wing it. I'm still Robert Hawthorne. Thank everyone for their service. Thanks for being here. I don't envy what you do. I appreciate it. That was great. A lot of what you said. Nobody likes stuff being forced down their throat. Absolutely. I agree. I was talking to Buddy Hyde a little bit before the meeting, and he was recalling where he used to work with our family in tobacco, and he was recalling places in Nottoway that we used to pull tobacco in. And it was around that time, 40-some years ago, basically, we stopped making capital improvements. And now it's time to pay the piper. That's around the time we stopped building an animal shelter, we stopped with a new landfill, we stopped building schools, we stopped with our emergency management systems, we stopped with our courthouses, and now we have all that looming. That's hanging over our heads as Nottoway taxpayers, and some of us as Nottoway citizens, most people here, I hope. This ordinance that you're debating, for all intents and purposes, is a ban on solar in Nottoway County, Virginia. There's no viable piece of land or no project that can viably exist under these parameters, period. If you don't want solar, have the guts to stand up and say, look, I just don't want solar. If we're here to serve the self-motivation of a few to the detriment of the many, fine, stand up and say that. But when it's time to raise taxes and you're going to force that down the throat of the Nottoway County taxpayers, remember how you voted. Okay? On behalf of Nottoway County, I don't want the State Corporation Commission ramming anything down our throat either. I don't want anyone making decisions about solar other than you guys in Nottoway County. I'm not in favor of taking away local control and sending it to the state, but if you don't play ball, if you don't do like almost every other county has done, it is going to be forced down our throats. We have to be proactive. Stay open. I wish I could co-opt a lot of your words. Go slow if you have to. But the way you're going now is going to eliminate solar entirely. And that revenue source, which can meet all those needs that Buddy and I were discussing, that this county needs, that revenue source, if you close it down, just remember, when you tell the taxpayers, I'm raising your taxes, I shut the door on an option that could have not only avoided a tax increase, but perhaps, like Charlotte County, led to lower taxes. Again, thank you for your service. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I don't envy your job, and I appreciate everyone, whether you disagree with me or not, I appreciate you serving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Austin. Okay, Robin Harmon.
My name is Robin Harmon. I live on Wills Road. I came tonight just to listen, and I put my name on the list just in case I wanted to comment, and I don't have any prepared remarks, but I would say my family and I have lived in this county for over 120 years on farmland, and I just would ask you all to carefully continue to consider this proposal and to preserve our rural county that we live in, where we don't all choose to live in. And also to think about that you really need to listen not only to the people that own land here, but the people that live here. And don't just consider it an investment where, you know, you can put up that solar farm and you're going to make money from it, and you don't have to see it and live with it, and you don't have to deal with it. And I hope that at least one of my two daughters will, or both, will live here ultimately, and that they don't have to deal with seeing that and dealing with the environmental impacts of that. And again, just want you to carefully consider this and continue to think about it, not make a hasty decision to make quick tax revenue money. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Harmon. Okay, Mr. Bill Outlaw.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Outlaw. I'm a resident of Nottoway County. I'd like to share 3 reasons why I think Nottoway County does not want industrial solar. And I'm going to take a little bit different tack at this from what most people have been saying. So 3 reasons. First, for the 3rd straight year, Communist China is mentioned most frequently by Americans as our greatest enemy. The majority of all solar panels and materials used in the U.S. are produced in China. Reason number 2, 95% of solar panels worldwide are made up of polysilicon. Nearly half the global production comes from Xinjiang, China, where polysilicon is produced by Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities under conditions of forced labor. Since 2009, China has been included on the list of goods produced by child labor of forced labor. Read that another way, a lot of things produced in China are produced by child slave labor. Do we want to participate with that any more than we already are? What is the difference between forced labor and slave labor, you might ask? Forced labor differs from slavery in that it involves not the ownership of one person by another, but rather merely the forced exploitation of that person's labor. Do you think for 1 minute somebody that's in a forced labor camp, like the gulags of Russia, would quibble over that definition? I don't think they would. Reason number 3, is industrial solar good for the environment? Solar produces 300 times more toxic waste per unit of energy than does nuclear. This according to the Environmental Progress, a Berkeley, California nonprofit. And contrary to earlier assumptions, the Stuttgart Institute of Photovoltaics study said the result shows that pollutants such as lead or carcinogenic cadmium can be almost completely washed out of the fragments of solar modules over a period of a few months by just rainwater. When solar panels are damaged by weather, mishandling, or improper disposal, these chemicals can leach into the water and soil. And I've heard a few things talked about tonight about property rights, and I understand property rights, but I heard something many, many years ago. Your rights end where my nose begins.
Thank you, Mr. Idlaw. Mr. Esther Reckenman? Sorry for missing your name.
All good.
I think I did it one night too.
If I come enough, maybe it'll get down. All right, good evening, Chairman Perry, Chairman Rourke, members of the board, members of the Planning Commission. It's a pleasure standing in front of all of you today. My name is Esther Reckelman, and I'm a project developer at Hexagon Energy. Over the last several months, many of you have come to know me as the woman working on developing a solar facility out near Burkeville, owned by 2 lovely people who are lifelong residents of Nottoway County. A few months ago, when the first draft of the ordinance was published, I stood in front of the board and recommended that they reconsider the restrictive setback, vegetative buffering, and other requirements being drafted for the final ordinance. I come in front of you today with a similar message. I'm very proud of the project that Hexagon Energy is developing. For reference, it's sited on a 120-acre property where only about 19 acres will actually house solar panels. It is well sited, surrounded on 2 sides by a railroad and naturally buffered well from the main road and surrounding tracts of land due to its location, terrain, and vegetation. I have spoken to a few of the supervisors as well as community members about this project and have received positive feedback about the project site design. However, this project is not possible if the ordinance is passed as proposed today. Without revising the language to allow for variances in the setback and buffering requirements, you are denying the landowners, who are lifelong residents of Nottoway County, the ability to tap an income source from solar development on 19 acres of their 120-acre tree farm and the county loses out on potential tax revenue. As proposed, the ordinance requires 800-foot setbacks from roads and rights-of-way, 800 feet from adjacent property lines, and 1,500 feet from habitable dwellings, among others, in order to accommodate 25 acres of buildable area that, let's say, has only roads and vacant tracts of land abutting it on all sides. That property then needs to be 160 acres to fulfill all of your setback requirements. If there are homes on each of the abutting properties, the minimum property size goes up to 375 acres. Again, that's for a project footprint of 25 acres. About 12% of the county area is serviced by Dominion, which is where smaller community solar projects are likely to be sited. Community solar projects range from 1 to 5 megawatts, with 3 megawatts being the average size. The small Dominion coverage area in the county is a built-in constraint on where smaller projects will likely be located. Based on your setback requirements at Hexagon's extensive analysis, that leaves less than 10 properties able to accommodate a 3-megawatt project based on earlier mentioned constraints. Tonight, I recommend including language in the ordinance that allows projects with lesser setbacks and vegetative buffers to be considered by the board on a case-by-case basis. Thank you for your time tonight. I hope you consider this amendment. I'm excited at the opportunity to work in Nottoway County on what we think is an excellent example of a small community solar project. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate the time that the supervisors and the members of the planning staff have given to work with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Kelsey Redmond.
Good evening, members of the board and the Planning Commission. My name is Kelsey Redmond, and I live in Burkeville off of South Genito Road. Before I get started, I know I've got to make this happen in 3 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to roll through everything, if you guys have your pens. First off, I'd just like to say thank you to the members of the Planning Commission for a job well done on such a well-written ordinance. I think it does a great job of balancing the concerns that we residents of the county have, as well as trying to allow for common sense development. That being said, I do have a few concerns that I'd like to jump into. Section 419.6, item 7, with regard to the buffers around surface waters, the current guidance on filter strips and BMPs of that nature establish minimum buffer widths anywhere from 50 to 165 to 200-foot offsets. Please note that professionals do assume that flows tend to reconcentrate within 150 to 300 feet. So if the intention of this buffer is to prevent rill and gully erosion downstream into waterways, I think that the 800-foot setback is a little strenuous there. Further, this buffer doesn't seem to account for any provision regarding floodplain or wetland protection, which I assume is supposed to be the intent of the setback. Please consider revisions such that would require the delineation of local wetlands adjacent to the site, as well as maybe a floodplain mapping requirement. In doing so, we can be more targeted and strategic with our protection of natural habitat and wetland preservation, while still balancing and allowing for development. Flipping back to section 419.7, item 4 with setback requirements, just to kind of piggyback off of Ms. Ruckelman here, I know that she came back and addressed us in the fall about how strict these setbacks were, so I kind of put pen to paper. My husband and I sit on a parcel that's roughly 2,000 by 2,700 feet. You can look that up in GIS and see the property that we have. We have zero intentions of developing solar. Believe me, our dinner conversations have sometimes revolved around putting everything into a conservation easement should our daughters kind of go crazy. But technology might develop in the future and look more sustainable by the time they're able to take over our land. The ordinance essentially zeroes out my children's options to go solar should they ultimately need or choose to. Property rights do still matter in the county. The last item that I'd like to hit on is in section 419.5, item 2, requirements for the small-scale solar. I'd request that the Virginia Erosion and Sediment Control and Stormwater requirements as listed in sections G and H also be included. The regs state that any areas regulated at the state level are subject to regulation, and it's not optional, so it's not something that the county could kind of bypass, even on these smaller sites. With that, I do think that I've probably hit my time, but again, I'd just like to thank you guys all for a job well done on such a well-written document.
Thank you, Ms. Redmond. Mr. Stewart Hardwell.
My name is Stuart Cardwell. I live out in rural Nottoway County, out next to Burkeville. Bill stole some of my thunder tonight because I had pretty much the same thing to say that he did. But I will say this, that I've been reading a lot of articles about solar power. I just read one about how countries in Europe are not able to stay warm because the seasonal snow they have has covered up their solar panels and they're not working. I also read an article where they said they'd have to have a solar farm the size of Long Island, New York, just to run the subway system. Seems a little short. I also read an article where another solar farm was hit with a huge hailstorm and 80% of the panels were rendered unusable. And you can't go back and fix them. Now, I've been to a couple of seminars on solar power. One of the questions I asked one of the engineers was about what it does with climate change, since everybody's worried about global warming. And I asked him, I said, doesn't that reflect heat back into the atmosphere? Makes sense, right? Sun comes down, you ever laid your hand on a hot windshield? It don't cool itself. Those panels don't cool themselves either. So before you say yay or nay on this, which I'm not going to tell you which way to go, but do some research, look into it deep, find out what's good and what's not. Same thing with the wind farms. And I got one thing to say about this assessment. We had a 2-acre block of land that we bought from a tax sale that was, when we bought it, it was landlocked. We had it on 3 sides. Our neighbor had it on the 4 sides. It was a trailer sitting on it, which was removed, and we bought it at a tax sale. And this assessment took 2 acres of land that had a tag on it for $2,300 and raised it to $4,700.
Mr. Caldwell, this is not about assessment, so.
Well, I just wanted to let everybody know that. Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy that we're going to be paying taxes on that. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Good old boys will take care of good old boys.
No, Slugger.
Okay, Slugger Marset.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate all the work this planning commission has done. I know it takes a whole lot out of you to do these sort of things, and you got people pulling at you from both sides, and it takes a whole lot of heart to do what you're doing. We appreciate what the planning commission has had to go through. My concern is that when we're talking about solar, just a few years ago, we were talking about biosolids. It ain't been that long ago. I think it's been somewhere around 22 years ago when the landmark case, Reuben Blanton versus Amelia County. And that case brought out that the county was getting involved with stopping biosolids from being used on everyone's land. So what happened was the state stepped in and took it over. And now I got to smell it, you know. But that's what happens when you keep pushing. These people with this kind of money that they've got, they're going down there and they're going to camp out at the General Assembly, and before long the counties are not going to have control of this. And that's what makes it bad, because they don't have to live here. I've done a lot of study in the last 2 years, actually the last 15 on Nottoway County. 80 years ago, we had about 200 more citizens than the county has now. It would take all of us, if a baby is born right now, before we would notice this acreage you're talking about, any difference. And so, instead of letting the state come in here and pushing them into passing laws and taking it out of the local government's hands, why don't you make it just a little bit easier? I mean, 40 acres. Do you know that it takes like 500 acres to get 40 acres the way these setbacks are designed? Now, I know I don't live here in the county. I'm reminded that. Board member right here told me the other night, after I left, that people that don't live in the county, and the irony of that, when somebody's setting up there, they don't live in the county. So, I mean, that's kind of ballsy, you know. So what the point I want to make is, before the state comes in here and takes it over, please make this easy enough. And I already know, and I can prove it, that public meetings and also to people talking to 3 of their board members have said they do not and will not approve any amount of solar that is usable. Now, that does away with the quorum, doesn't it? Because if that ain't statement, if that does not put you in a box, how can you vote on something when you've already determined that you're not going to have it? So thank you a lot for your service, but I don't agree with that type of government.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Dennis Tatum.
Make it short and sweet. I was always brought up to control something, you need to own it. They got a big project they want to put on my farm. I'm for it, for taxes, for Nottoway County, and I don't think the county should be able to tell me what to do and what not to do with my land. And I would love for you to look, Mr. Dickey, at the buffers and back them down, because that will not work. It's too much buffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tatum. David Warsing.
I believe he left.
Left. Okay, Sonny Abbott.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like all of you, just for a moment, think of the Titanic. Because I'm pretty sure you all remember the Titanic. When the folks got on that ship, they didn't know what was going to happen that day or later that evening. But up came an iceberg, and that iceberg is money. And that's what we're talking about. We all talk about money. And even if we go through and tighten up an ordinance, as difficult as it may be, there'll be someone that's going to want to try this. And someone's going to look at money. Somebody somewhere in that chain is going to look at money. And my question is how have we done with the money that's been given us so far? Have we done the kinds of things that we were supposed to do with that money? Taxpayers in the county last year ponied up somewhere in the neighborhood of a budget of $48 million. Was it worth it? All I ask is that this ordinance needs to be absolutely bulletproof. And it can't be just because we're looking for money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Okay, did we miss anybody on that signed up? Yes, your name? Okay, come on up.
I'm James Pridgeon. I live in Nottoway County. I guess a lot of the things been said here. I noticed reading the ordinance, it says there's a small scale and a medium scale, but there's no large scale. So I guess I would recommend just eliminating the word medium scale throughout the document. You could have a small scale and then a 40 acre. That clears it up for me, not wanting to see where the large scale is at all times. Okay, one part in it talks about all the roads will be paved, asphalt, or similar surface, impervious surface. If you could make the parking in the roadways pervious, it would take some water up instead of it all running off. So I would maybe look at making some of that a little bit pervious. The buffers do seem to be excessive to me. It does eliminate it in the county. And if it is going to be shoved down our throats in the future, possibly, I'd like to make one recommendation, and that's that you make, in your ordinance, you put in there that all land underneath the photovoltaic cells will be put in agricultural production. There's a lot of stuff, you can look it up on the internet, it's called agrovoltaics. There's a lot you can do, and I said just put it in agricultural production and let the people worry about whether they do sheep, asparagus, mushrooms, whatever they do, but that'll put some entrepreneurs in play, and they may come up with some good things to do. Maybe some opportunities for some young farmers with some bright ideas, because we sure need something in the county. So if you put that in there, maybe it would be a whole lot better to me, because otherwise the companies will probably just spray it with glyphosate for 20 or 30 years, and that's just not going to be good for anybody. And you know, we're only here for a few years, and we're stewards of the land. So if they can do something, if you keep it in agricultural production, there's a good chance it'll be better than it was when they started. And that's what we all ought to be pushing for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else we may have missed? Yes, sir, come on up.
Chairman, I don't know if they signed up.
Okay. Did you sign up, sir?
No, sir, I didn't. I missed the sheet. I understand. I wouldn't be upset.
Okay, we'll allow you.
Okay. All right. I don't want to start a train of people, but good evening, members of the board, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Blake Cox, and I'm one of the founders of a nonprofit organization called Energy Right, where we're focused on educating about clean energy from a conservative perspective, talking about property rights and an all-of-the-above approach to energy. So as you all consider ordinance language in regards to solar, we just encourage you to keep an eye on property rights, meaning someone can do what they want with their land as long as they aren't negatively affecting their neighbor or their community. But also be mindful of economic growth opportunities that come along with clean energy investments. We believe that solar projects should pay their fair share in taxes so that all residents can benefit. It's important to remember that additional tax revenues from solar don't strain public services like other types of development do demand. These tax dollars can go to help lowering the taxes for your citizens. Our roads, infrastructure, funding schools are very important first responders. And while there are many aspects of this ordinance that are good, like the decommissioning language, community engagement aspects, and various environmental studies, specifically two aspects of the proposed ordinance would essentially ban solar in the county. First being the 40-acre project limit, and second, the various forms of setbacks. And I understand wanting to target smaller projects, but with these two elements within the draft ordinance, no project would even have the opportunity to be presented to the board or the commission. And really, that's my main message here tonight, is opportunity. We hope that you create an ordinance that gives folks the opportunity to bring projects forward for your consideration. An ordinance that allows you to judge projects individually and on their merits, so you can give the thumbs up to the good ones and a thumbs down to the bad ones. So our organization, we actually ran a poll a few weeks ago. We wanted to test how folks across Virginia felt about property rights, how they felt about solar being next to their home. So I'll just share two quick stats with you from that poll. 83% of Virginians disagreed, and this is a statewide survey, but 83% of Virginians disagreed when asked if local government should be able to limit the property rights of landowners regarding solar projects. Those 83% that disagreed. When asked what would people prefer on 100 acres of land near your home, between solar and various other types of development, that was housing development, industrial complex, I believe nuclear was in there as well, 55% said they would prefer a solar project. And I'd be happy to share those poll results with anybody who would like to see them. But so I would just urge you to remove these two items from the solar ordinance so that landowners here in Nottoway can have the opportunity to bring solar projects before you for your consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. And got to get a motion from the Planning Commission. It's probably moved and second that, well, I didn't hear a second.
Second.
It's probably moved and second that we're going to close the public hearing. All in favor of Planning Commission, raise your right hand. Opposed?
All right, Board of Supervisors members, I need a motion to close the Board of Supervisors portion of the public hearing.
Also move. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? I digress, Mr. Chairman.
We certainly want to thank each and every one for coming out this afternoon, and believe me, we heard each and every one of you. And I can assure you, we will not be making any hasty decisions. That's why I'm gonna recommend to the Planning Commission tonight that we will not make any recommendation tonight to the Board of Supervisors, that we will hold off until our March meeting after we discuss it in a later meeting. Is the Planning Commission, are you all in favor of that? Could I get a motion? Could we get a motion?
Make a motion.
Oh, okay. Second? Okay, been properly moved and second that the Planning Commission will hold off on making any recommendation to the Board of Supervisors until our next meeting. All in favor, let's raise our right hand. Opposed? Okay.
All right, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Perry, if I could, I'd like to address the Board of Supervisors for 1 second there. Board members, as y'all see, there's no recommendation coming forward from the Planning Commission tonight. So the public hearing stands good for 60 days. So I think it's more than reasonable to allow the Planning Commission to absorb this, as we all should be as well. Got plenty of notes to go over here. There is a personal recommendation I may send over to the Planning Commission as well about reducing the footprint as technology advances. I mean, if panels become from this size down to this size as technology advances, well then maybe we should require in this ordinance as well to reduce the footprint, and that's going to put some cost back on the projects itself. But if we're going to free up our land, if the technology advances, I think we should consider that as well. But I will send that over in an email to the Planning Commission as well. But as the Board of Supervisors, do y'all have anything that y'all want to mention tonight, or are we going to be ready to just wait for their recommendation after their March meeting?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, let me speak for 1 second. Mr. Zodi will take the comments that you heard tonight and send a draft out of some of the comments for your consideration, because I know it's so much information at one time.
Yes, sir. It works for me. Board members, y'all okay with that?
Yeah, good summary of what we heard tonight, be good.
Okay. Mr. Ingram, Ms. Norton, Mr. Toth? Okay. All right. I digress, Mr. Chair.
Planning Commission, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Board of Supervisors, I need a motion to adjourn the Board of Supervisors portion of this meeting.
I make that motion. I'll second it.
All in favor signify by standing up.